On the flight deck, crews are now manning for the next launch. It's time to clear the flight deck and catwalks. Stand well clear of all jet blasts, prop arcs, and exhaust. It's time to start up the Go aircraft. Let's start them up.
Hi, I'm Dave Baranek, call sign Bio. I was an F-14 Rio and Top Gun instructor, and I'm one of your hosts for the F-14 Tomcast. Now, for the past year on this show, we've been celebrating the Tomcat by discussing its unique design, the brave men and women who flew, fixed, and fought the big fighter, and its appearances in various conflicts and movies.
And I'm Craig Snyder, call sign Crunch, and I was an F-14 pilot, also a Top Gun instructor, and I'm your co-host here on the F-14 Tomcast. Now, today is a special episode because it's our last one. And if you recall from way back on episode 0 a year ago, the plan was always to air a new episode every other Tuesday for 1 year, which equals 26 episodes. And today, this is episode 26.
In standard fighter aviation tradition, we want to spend this last episode debriefing the goods and others of the past year. And here to help us do that is the guy who had the idea for this show in the first place. He joined us at the beginning on episode 0, and he's now back to help us close it out. Vincent Aiello, call sign Jell-O, welcome back to the F-14 Tomcast.
Well, thanks, Bio, and hello, Crunch. I might have had the idea for this, but you guys really took the ball and ran with it. And man, what an amazing series of episodes. I can't believe the year went by so quickly. It seems to happen faster every year, but that was a lot of fun.
It's gone by amazingly fast. I can't believe that it's already been a year. It just seemed like in the beginning, it was like, holy cow, there's so much in front of us, so many to go. And now all of a sudden we went, wow, that was 20. Holy cow, we just recorded the last one. It almost happened before I knew it. It was so fast.
Yep. And a lot's happened in the last year.
Yeah, but sometimes it seemed like, it's going to go on forever. Like when we're talking about the plans for future episodes, Crunch, and we go, damn, we've got 24 episodes to fill up. How are we going to come up with them? And then as we get into it, we start running out of episodes.
Yeah. So. Do you guys remember, like on deployment, right? You're like, like 5 more months. This is going to go on forever. And when there's like a month to go or a couple of weeks, you almost don't want it to end. So it's just human nature, I guess.
I don't know about that. You must have had some pretty good deployments.
So, Jell-O, how are things at home?
Touche. Oh boy.
So, oh man. Well, it's funny what you're saying, Bio, about there being content. There's so many ideas and that have came out towards the end. Like we're like, wow, what are we going to do for these 12 episodes? And I remember in the beginning, we just said like empty. We didn't even know what we were going to do towards the end. We only knew like the last 2, and in the middle, we're like, wow, we don't know. And meanwhile, people start towards the end. People are calling me. Like last week, I had a phone conversation with Dean Castillo calling me up going, I got a great idea for you. And I'm like, that is a great idea. I love it. And I'm writing it down, but we are past. Yeah. We've recorded all of them. So maybe some other series, right?
Maybe another season with another pilot and Rio host and co-host, or I don't know. You guys tell me, but tell you what, I want to hijack Tomcast episode 26 and flip the script and put you guys in the interviewee seat. And first thing I want to ask you is, here we are, episode 26, right? That was the game plan all along, every other Tuesday, 14 days between, released at 14:14 Zulu time. I thought that was clever. Are you guys relieved? Are you happy? Are you sad? Right? Because, hey, to make my case for deployment, right? Let's face it, you have a lot of fun out there. It's a lot of brutal stuff too, but it's as good a flying as you're going to get. Port is fun, right? So it's kind of sad when it's over. It was for me. What about you guys? You relieved, sad, happy, little both?
Crunch.
Well, I tell you, it's a combination of both. I have so much fun when we hit record and get started. I am having a ball. I think this is so much fun. I tell you what, the hard part for me is scheduling. So I sit there and when they're just trying to get the 3 of us, much less when we have 4 guests on board, it is just hard to scheduling. And that's a piece that I don't want to say I disliked, but it's a challenge and it makes life somewhat hard. I mean, we all have a few things pulling us in different directions. And sometimes they're not as predictable as we would like them to be. And so when we sit there, how hard was it just to schedule the three of us for this episode? And we did schedule this one a little further out, but we just picked a day and said, there it is. And I'm sure the three of us had other stuff that we're like, actually we're on a 45-minute delay today on the recording because Jell-O, you had other stuff going on, right? And guess what? I had somebody else calling me up going, hey, 2:00, can you meet me over here? I'm like, no, I can't because I got a thing. And that was, a business opportunity that, I sort of missed out on. I'm looking forward to basically not having to balance everybody's schedules, but I am going to miss it for sure.
One day you guys will retire and it'll be a lot easier to schedule anything you want. But in terms of missing it, Crunch, that's a good point. When you hit the record button, it's like when you plan for a flight and you strap in and you lower the cockpit, then it's like, okay, now we're doing what we signed up to do, you don't join the Navy to plan missions. You join the Navy to fly them,
Oh, like when you're like, oh, it's time for strike planning. So you go down to Civic and you get like the sweaty itches because you're like, I don't know, you're in Civic just like, I don't want to be here and it's uncomfortable. And I probably don't even know what I'm doing right now. Somebody put me in charge of keyboard cards and I don't know how to use Excel, I've got bad handwriting. I don't know. And you find yourself sometimes doing those things that lead up to it that they're not what you join the Navy for, right? You join the Navy to go turn and burn, put holes in the sky. And then you're like, now I'm in the PR shop and I'm trying to squeeze into my dry suit and it's hot outside, but cold in the water. And then you get your gear on and you look like the Michelin Man and you can't even climb up the boarding ladder because you can't fit in the dry suit. You finally get in, you strap in, you're all sweaty and nasty. You're like, oh, I'm tired. I haven't but I'm in the jet now. Finally, I get to do the fun part. Let's start the engines.
Well, guys, I've been doing this this is our 5th year on the Fighter Pilot Podcast. And I've always said having a podcast is like having an infant. Because there's always something you got to do. You're keeping an eye on the thing. And yeah, you're right, Crunch. When you hit record like we're doing right now, it's fun. But leading up to that moment is all the other stuff, the wiping the dirty bottoms and all that of having an infant. But yeah, to your point, man, I'm up.
Well, you
go ahead.
I was going to say you were kind of wiping our dirty bottom for the last couple of days here. You were like, hey, I got this outline that I've done right here. And you're like, hey, has anybody looked at this? And you kind of worry. You're like, oh,
it's all good.
Come here. Give you a little burpee.
Well, to your point, I am in Oregon visiting family. And yes, I had an interview for the Fighter Pilot Podcast run a little late. So I appreciate your guys' flexibility. Now, Bio, what did you enjoy? Let's start with that, right? I have to think either getting reconnected with people or maybe the Tomcat, but what did you enjoy about it?
Yeah, reconnecting with people. Yes, that's fun, but you can do it elsewhere. But we have a monthly happy hour down here, and I go see some of my Tomcat buddies. But I was thinking about this as this episode approached, and one of the things that I enjoyed is that every time I sit here at this desk in front of the camera and microphone, and we start talking about this, it reminds me of my years flying the Tomcat, which was something that I sought, from a young age. Not necessarily Tomcats, but to fly Navy jets. And so, sitting here going over it just reinforces, reiterates, takes me back to those great years, all the expertise developed and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's probably one of the most fun parts. One more fun thing. Reading the comments of the audience. I guess that's dopamine, when you read that people just say they love the Tomcat or they like the show or whatever. So
yeah.
That's fun.
And you sort of hand waved a little bit, not just the Tomcat, but I think that's the point, right? At the beginning of even my odyssey in podcasting, everybody loved the Tomcat. And so at the beginning of episode 0, right, I sort of quipped, it's brutishly good looks? Is it's a Hollywood stardom? It is a unique fighter. And honestly, I don't think the F-18 will ever reach that level of notoriety, if that's the right word.
I think you're right.
How about you, Crunch? What'd you like about these last 26 episodes?
It was absolutely the people. So it was so fun to, one, reconnect with people that I already knew as part of the show, to meet some other folks that I had never met or heard about, maybe never talked to. For example, Hey Joe, I'd never met him before, right? It was a great opportunity. I got a chance to meet him and other folks throughout the season. But it was also a chance for me to meet and reconnect with people outside of the show, because a lot of times, as an example, my cousin Mike out in Michigan, like he and I just, we've never really been close. Next thing you know, we start connecting on text and Facebook because he becomes a fan of the show. Or I'm at the airport in uniform, not wearing Tomcast anything, just getting ready to fly up to New York. And a guy that I don't know walks up and says, "Hey, has anybody ever told you got a face for a podcast?" And I'm like, "Actually, I do have a podcast. How did you know?" And he goes, "Yeah, I know. I watch it." I'm like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" It was just out of the blue. I'm like, "Hi, Zach, by the way." Hi, Zach. It's just amazing. So I really enjoyed reconnecting with people as part of the show, reconnecting with folks outside of the show, and just, I can randomly pick up the phone and talk to somebody right now, and it's a coin flip 50-50 that they know we're part of this. And I just think it's really amazing. I could say, "Hey, I got this show, me and Bio, we're part of Jell-O's thing," and people know what's going on. Matter of fact, I've flown with several people who are like fans of the Fighter Pilot podcast, and they didn't know about ours. I'm like, yeah, we're part of that. We're under his umbrella. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know anything about that. Big fan of Jell-O's. He's great. Got a great show." So I see that all. You asked what the question was. What do I enjoy the most? It's absolutely just like being in the Navy.
No doubt.
It's the people.
No doubt.
100%.
And I appreciate, I might have helped it get going, but really you guys became the parents of this thing. So I don't want to take any extra credit. You really made it happen. So let's stick with that. Is there anything more on the dislike? I had planned these questions for you. We already kind of talked about the grind and the scheduling. Is there anything more we need to
on things we dislike? Yeah. I'm going to talk about some missed opportunities. Okay. One of the, and, I don't know what you chalk it up to. I guess it's just life. But one of the missed opportunities was Crunch and I and Jell-O, when we were outlining ideas with you, we all wanted to have more maintenance people on the show. Mm-hmm. And we both tried to contact other maintainers that we knew over the years, and it just didn't work out for them. I had several people who said they would be interested in doing it, but they go, "Oh, I can't do it in the next few months or whatever." And we did have a schedule. We had some flexibility, but we did have a schedule. And then one of the other things that missed opportunities, and this is one that, we didn't talk about it at the time, but this is a good time to mention it, was Snort Snodgrass. When we were launching this, I contacted Snort because I knew him just a little bit. And he said, "Yeah, I'll come on your show. I'd love to talk about flying the F-14. And he couldn't schedule it at that time. And so before he could schedule it, he had his tragic mishap. And so we lost Snort. So, we almost got a chance to interview him, but that didn't happen. So
that's unfortunate. Obviously his death is unfortunate, but it would have been a great final, testament to him to be able to have him on the show and memorialize him. So yeah, that's unfortunate. How about, but what about topics? Right. Were there any topics you wished you'd had time for, or just ran out of time, or just couldn't find the right people?
Well, I don't know. We had, there's always more. I feel like we could just do a weekly show of sea stories, right? And just people just tell stories about, "Hey, there I was in low holding. Let me tell you another story." I remember a good friend of mine, he used to have a saying. He would say, "Every good and evil aviator has 5 stories. You just retell them." And you got your 5 good stories. You just tell them over and over and over. And I'm like, you know what? And that's so true. And I bet we could grab anybody and have them tell us their 5 stories. And this show could go forever. And I think the audience would really appreciate that. And so there are just, I know Bayou, you've talked about just doing Sea Story podcast, and it'd be just an incredible experience to be so much fun. It's not even history. I mean, because Lord knows there'd be half truths in there all over the place, but that makes a great story. I also know that like I said, we got contacted by several people with some great ideas. I'm like, yeah, those are great ideas, 100%. And there's some opportunities there that, if we were doing this longer, 100% we would do them. right now, I think it's good to have for this. We've gotten some nice energy. We keep going, and like you said, if there's an encore season 2, maybe you bring on a different crew, different pilot in Rio, and maybe they pick it up and they interview those folks. It'd be a
Well,
great
and
idea.
humans love
100%.
stories, right? So the stories are the big part of it. And we can read the facts elsewhere, but the anecdotes of whether it's ejection stories or CQ stories or whatever the case is, those are the things. Because everyone, right?
Right.
Some folks like Robin Olds wrote a book, but there's a lot of great pilots out there and Rios. Sorry, but a lot of good air crew out there that have good stories. Yeah, I know.
They're people too.
I'm not an NFO hater. It just sneaks out sometimes. But not everybody writes a book is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
What about the mailbag? You guys did, I think, a listener question kind of intermission around the holidays. Was there more mail, or did you just respond to people, or what's going on with that?
I can't think of any questions that we've left hanging that I want to answer, because when I saw that question, I was going, I will leave it in here. I don't think we left anything hanging because I wanted to make a point to respond to everybody. On the other hand, I would say that there was a category of questions that came up occasionally in our email, and that was people looking for either very technical information, and some people asked, they wanted to go through every system that was upgraded in the F-14B or something, and and I can see that would probably be interesting, but it's just going to be difficult to get the information, and I'm not an expert on it. And also, I'm still concerned about some classification things, even though it's that was a long time ago. So I think the category of questions that we kind of pushed off were the more technical ones. I don't think we left anything hanging. If we do, we'll leave the mailbox open for a little while, and people can write, and we'll try to respond to them now.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I tell you, Bio, you did a great job through the whole season. Of somebody would come up with a question, they would post it, you would answer it, and every once in a while he'd be like, "I know Crunch isn't reading these; he's not on his email," and he'd forward them to me, and I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome! I get that one," and I'd get on there and do that. But that was. I really appreciate what you did for that, because you were all over it. And I would, because, well, I tell you, I would go through like the Instagram or Facebook, and I'd start looking at things, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's it. Oh no, Bio got. Oh yeah, oh Bio got that one. Oh, the hell with it. I'm good. I'm going. Where's my beer?"
One that I get sometimes is that someone will say, "Oh, come on. They can pull a F-14 out of the boneyard and make it go fly for air shows again." And I always kind of slap my head. I said, "I think we have a better chance of stealing one," which I'll get to that point in a moment. But one thing I forgot to warn you I wanted to ask about, and so I'll be deliberately vague about it, is there was at least one episode that excited a little controversy. Do we want to just let that sleeping dog lie, or is it worth kind of burying that once and for all?
Well, there was that got more controversy. That got more controversy than I expected, and we addressed it, and we talked among ourselves and with the guest, and I think we addressed it satisfactorily. I did not expect that level of pushback or questioning, whatever.
Yeah. Well, it was fairly early on, and maybe people were trying to cut you guys down a little bit. And so if anyone's wondering what we're talking about, there was one particular episode where some agencies took issue with the credibility of our guest. And we'll leave it at that. So we squashed that, we think, but you never know. People like salacious topics.
Yeah, and in the end, you know what? It's also possible that we got it wrong, and that's okay. But we do the best that we can. I feel confident that we did the best we can, and I'll let everything else hang out there. And if someday it turns out, hey, you got that wrong, shoot, we'll still leave it out, and I'll just say, that's wrong.
But
all of it.
I don't think we did.
Yeah. It's still out
I don't
there,
think we did.
But it's wrong. Yeah, I don't think so either. But I'd be happy to say.
You know what? On that note, you know what I did? So Flounder, F-14 Rio, helped me with an episode the other day, and he misidentified what CCIP stands for, and I corrected him. And then some listener wrote me, it's like, "Actually, Jell-O, you were wrong too." I think I said constantly, and it's anyway. I got the right gist of it, but I didn't get the exact right word. But it's
Computer
not. Well,
calculated
maybe it
impact
is in the
point,
Tomcat, but it's not
I
in the
think.
F-18. It's either constantly or continuously. I think it was. I think I said constantly, and it's continuously.
I think it's
Whatever.
continuously.
Yeah.
Anyway, we said something wrong. We like got a small technical term wrong in one or two of our episodes, and I'm going, but it was too late to put the text over, and so okay,
Yeah.
the comment is there, and
You know what? My approach on the Fighter Pilot podcast is authentic, factual, and personal, right? The authentic me and the authentic you two is we're going to make mistakes once in a while. Not often,
Yeah.
but once in a while. But then, hey, I'll come back and fix it if I can. That's the factual part. And the personal is, hey, look, this is what you get, right? We're not perfect. So,
well, it contrasts though when we were all three Top Gun instructors. I mean, when you were a Top Gun instructor, but you were authoritative, accurate, etc. But you put so much effort into preparing for that, and you controlled the environment. Now we're on a podcast,
Yeah. Yeah, but we're still used to, at least I am, that old
That's
style.
true.
Like, my mindset is still to be like we were at Top Gun, which is you should be perfect every time, and that's
Oh
just
yeah.
not possible. But that's, oh, by the way, I think why the murder board process is so rigorous, and then if you stick with that, you will be factual because it's been vetted through all the other bros. But as soon as you start
Yeah.
wandering off, that's dangerous, and everyone does that after a few.
Well, yeah, but in the murder board process, you're giving the exact same lecture with the exact same talk. I mean, you have that thing memorized, not because it's memorized, but because you have so internalized the knowledge that this is the way it's said, because if I say it this way, it's confusing, and that way is stupid. So I'm going to say it this way because it always works, and you do it every time. Meanwhile, on a podcast, we're like, hey, let's talk about what we had for lunch, and it's
well, you shouldn't get that wrong, Crunch. But all right, so hey, we talked about listener questions.
I don't remember.
We talked about listener questions. We talked about stealing F-14s. In May, you guys had Bozo and Smegs on talking about the movie Top Gun from 1986.
Yeah.
But you guys didn't really talk about Top Gun Maverick. So can we spend a couple minutes? I mean, the F-14 makes an appearance at the end.
We can. So so I remember when that was coming out, I actually reached out to Brian Ferguson. He's, I think you had him on your show, and I reached out to him as well and said, hey, can you come on and do a quick thing for us? And he was like, I got to do it after the movie's out. I can't, gag order, all that stuff. I'm like, let's do that. Let's do that. Well, guess what happened? All the schedule got filled up, and I was like, well, that's it. We had an empty spot, and now we don't anymore. So we move on. That was my feeling on it. Bio, I think you felt the same way, which is, hey, it's being handled by everybody else. We'll stick to what we know. Because really, the new movie is really about, basically it's about broken people becoming amazing on the backdrop of some awesome flying.
That wasn't, so I didn't ask the question correctly. I'm not even drinking. I should be, I guess. I didn't even ask the question correctly. I meant simply from what you saw of the F-14 in Top Gun Maverick. Was it believable, realistic? Were you celebrating like, yeah, it's back, or were you kind of cringing?
I'm sitting there watching Top Gun Maverick, and I enjoyed the movie. I liked it. I thought it was a very, very similar in tone to the original, so it was a worthy, appropriate sequel. And again, and the Super Hornet looked good. And I said that one time, and Megan said, pump the brakes, Bio, or something like that, when I complimented the Super Hornet. and so I'm enjoying the movie. But then when the Tomcat showed up, I got a chill down my spine. I go like, oh yeah, that's it. And it was also pretty realistic about the startup procedures. You can't self-start a Tomcat, and Rio's got to climb up that awkward way and all that. And then,
Well, it was funny. That was one of the things I really noticed, that I was like, holy cow, they actually showed him climbing up the horizontal stab. I'm like, because that's how you would have to do it, because you'd have to put the ladder up and then climb around the back. I was pretty excited about that part.
Flying gave Maverick a chance to show, okay, this is why he became famous in the first place, or whatever, Yeah, Crunch.
Yeah. And then, and of course, there's the standard Hollywood stuff of every airplane on the flight line is fully fueled and fully armed and ready for combat. And shoot, you could be in a combat zone. You're like, all right, what do we got on the roof? And who's got gas? It's completely not realistic there. But every movie as my wife likes to say, it's a movie.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
not a documentary.
It did.
Just enjoy it.
Oh, cool.
I enjoyed it 3 times.
I hope we're still talking about the
movie.
movie.
It was great. Yeah.
So
We are.
the movie did perpetuate. Anyway, moving on. The movie did perpetuate one of my biggest pet peeves about Hollywood, and that is the aircraft gun that goes rat-a-tat-tat. I don't know why they insist on the tick, 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 you know. It's like,
I missed that.
Guys.
I need to watch it again and try to detect that.
Yeah, no, they do it in almost every movie where they show the gun firing is very much like an M60 and not at all like an M61A1. So, all right. So,
Make the sound for the gun. Make the sound for everybody. What should it sound like?
The real gun? Oh, it should be basically like a long series of Z's. Zzz, something like that, right?
Oh, and the
Tomcat trying to make me embarrass myself
because it was right under your.
That's the A10 now.
Yeah. Well, it's what it sounded like. It was that's what it sounded. Unlike the A4, which was gunk 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 gunk. That was the A4 gun.
For me, it was usually 2 gunks, and then it would jam on me when I did get it.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Gunk gunk. Oh crap! And then we're like, "You're a qual." Move on.
All right, you guys want to look at some numbers?
We were at the same time. Yeah. We had the same problems.
All right, so we're calling this a debrief, right? So we got the goods of the others. We got the numbers. Let's look at some numbers. All right, so.
All right, I got a whiteboard. Hold on a second. I got a whiteboard, and I got my Artline 500 marker, blue
just
for
take
the fighter color.
Just take it on board.
I'm ready to go.
All right, so when I checked yesterday.
But I'm ready, man. I'm ready for the debrief. I got my whiteboard.
That's good. It's all good.
Putting this down.
So I looked yesterday as we're recording this, and episode 25 came out today, so it's not going to count that. But 284,000 downloads, which is about an average of 10,000 each. And your top 3 from number 3 up was episode 1, F-14 development, with 14,000. And you could argue it's been out the longest, but not necessarily. I don't think the case here as far as for the numbers go. Episode 2, F-14A at 15,000. And your most downloaded was Flying the F-14, episode 4. And that was with Slammer. And I think, Bio, that's where Snort was supposed to come with us, right?
Yeah, and you know what? That brings up another reason why I didn't want to talk about Snort, because Slammer is he did an excellent job,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I didn't want to compare. We could have had Snort through this one, but that was the episode we planned to talk to Snort about. Yep. So that was our most downloaded episode. That's good, because there's a lot of good stories in there.
On podcast players. Now, YouTube is a totally different story. And you guys broke the mold, by the way, for me on YouTube, because you're doing this video format, which is great, but it adds some complication. But your top 3 downloads on YouTube were, number 3 was episode 1, again, F-14 development, with 41,000 views when I checked last. Episode 15 was number 2, F-15 versus F-14, with 48,000.
Oh, good.
And yeah, not surprisingly, episode 19 was number 1. That was Top Gun the movie with Bozo and Smegs at 75,000 downloads.
Bozo. Luckily, Bozo is a great storyteller. So,
yeah. Yep. And did I send that to you, Bio? Someone emailed trying to get in touch with him for something. I don't know if we did put those people in touch, but at any rate.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I mean, and Smegs also. Smegs, damn. When we were just bleeping lieutenants back then, Smegs did such a great job. Yeah. And he wasn't a Top Gun bro. He went through the Top Gun class, but he wasn't a bro. But I remember the bros talking, going like, he's doing a good job. So, okay, back to real time.
Back to the numbers. So that's downloads. The other big number I think that matters is, for the longest time on this show, we were running a deficit, and we did 2 fundraisers, one on episode 11, one on episode 21. And based on episode 11, I thought, well, if we can repeat that, we'll probably maybe break even. But boy, did people show up, and big shout out to all those who did. You guys also did a survey at the end, and I guess what? You sent me the results, but you didn't look at them first. So do I get to surprise you with some of this?
You do.
I did not look at them.
No idea what they said.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to go in the order in which you asked your listeners / viewers. And the first one is favorite episodes. So I don't know that I even have one, although I did get in there and vote, I think. But before we do, am I allowed to ask you? It's like if you have kids, you're not supposed to ask a parent what their favorite kid is. But how about you guys? Do you have real quick a favorite episode?
Yeah. Okay, I
Which
came
one?
up with one, and Crunch, it'll give you time to think about it. I'll tell you the one that my favorite one was the Combat Phoenix shoot. I'm looking at my list here, number 22.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it was my biggest disappointment in my career, of my professional life, that the U.S. Navy has no Tomcat or no Combat Phoenix kills.
Mm-hmm.
When Jumbie described the whole setup for that mission, I was going, "Oh, there's a lot more to it than I expected."
Yeah.
And then after that, all the other episodes are a close second
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I mean, just they had incredible stories of professionalism, adventure, and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Crunch,
I'd say that one has to come up.
Crunch, if you need more time, I'll tell you my favorite. And
No,
all right, go ahead.
I'm ready. I'm going to break the mold. My favorite was the Orties with Gunner Steve and Gunner Z-Man. Because I just had it was like I felt like I was sitting around a campfire with a beer in one hand and a gun in the other. It was just I was having a good time.
For similar reasons,
awesome.
I think my favorite was the aviation electronic technicians, and I don't remember your two guests, but it was one part of the whole episode of 26 episodes was at the end. You guys were already having fun, and you asked one of them what he's doing now, and he said something like, "I teach English," and Crunch, you came back. I teach English good. And at that point, I just fell out. I think I was somewhere public listening in AirPods and people just looking at me like, what's wrong with this guy? But that was so indicative of the community, right? To wax poetic for a second, like you're kind of ribbing this guy who's your friend who just spent an hour or more of his time helping you. But it's also like, that's our way of showing love, right? In a way. So it was so perfect. That's what we miss, I think, viewers and listeners.
That was Barry and John on that episode. Barry Shoemate and John Kovar, yeah.
I don't know about you guys. That's what I miss most of my Navy career. Flying fighters was cool, but moments like that in the ready room or on port or on wherever, that's as good as it gets.
Oh, it's funny.
Right.
All
right. So those are your favorite. Here's what the listeners said. There was a tie for third. It was Top Gun the movie and F-14D, episodes 19 and 9. And both of those had 19.1% votes. In second place was episode 23, Operation Enduring Freedom, with over 20.5%. And the number one was Flying the F-14, episode 4, 21%.
Cool.
All right.
Okay.
I'm glad to see that the episodes were sprinkled around and it wasn't like we talked about either the oldest or the newest,
right.
So.
Yeah. Yep. I got a little tongue tied on that. It might make sense, right? That the one with the most downloads is the oldest, but that wasn't the case. So there's a more eloquent way to put it.
Yeah. And of course we do have to, disclaimer that Puck Howe, episode 25, nobody has even had a chance to see this. But didn't you say that he got votes and nobody's even heard the episode yet?
By the way, it could have been from our Patreon listeners because I used to, when you guys would give me the episode, I would put it out on the FPP Patreon early.
Right. That's right. That was the unedited version.
No, I would take it when your producer was done with it. I would take it and post it. Just the audio.
Okay. I did see that much, but then when Jell-O said he wanted to surprise us, I quit looking and I never looked at the anyway. So.
No problem.
So good job, Puck. Nobody even heard your episode.
Just that good.
They give you a thumbs up.
All right.
And you know what he's going to say? He's going to say, "Of course I am."
All right, guys. Most surprising episodes. Like in my world, it was the C2 Greyhound. Everyone's like, boring, but Jell-O really brought it to life. So for you, this time there was a tie for first. So in third was again Operation Enduring Freedom, episode 23, with over 20%.
That was the most. This is the most surprising to the listener, meaning they heard it, they had low expectations, and they were pleasantly
surprised. We think
surprised.
So, right? I don't know. Remember
like that? Yeah.
How well you guys articulated the survey, but I think you said something along these lines. But it could have been interpreted differently.
I think it's. Well, I think
it could have been the other way. Like, I had great expectations. I was surprised by how bad it was. Could be that too.
Okay.
All right.
No worries.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that was number three was Operation Enduring Freedom. And then tied for first, and my numbers don't make sense, so I must have not gotten the percentages transferred. But episode 8, Orties, and episode 14, Lantern.
Oh, cool. All right.
Awesome. The most surprising.
And I think it's
awesome.
Go ahead.
Well, I think it's the first definition. I think people see something relatively technical, like, oh, okay, they just slap the bomb on and load it. But the guests probably made it. And same with the lantern, right? I forget who your guest was, but
Hey, Joe.
he talked. Hey, Joe. Yeah, thanks. He talked about what they had to go through and really
Right.
put. Like, you just hear the word lantern, you're like, okay, whatever. But now that we know what goes into it, I think people, because they've invested their time, they start investing their emotions a little bit in it. Like, because I feel for what they had to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that probably for me, my most surprising would probably be the Lantern episode, because even though I flew it, I was in the Tomcat community during those years when they were developing it.
Mhm.
I never knew that backstory. I mean, I did not know how deeply that went into it. And I remember we had Santa Knoll on the episode, and he was talking about FTI and DI tarps and stuff like that when they were developing DI tarps. I had no idea what they were going through with that either,
Right,
even though he was in my squadron. I'm like, wow, you did all that? I didn't know that. I'm just some new guy. I didn't know anything, but I learned so much in the Lantern episode that I had no idea about. That was my most surprising. 100%.
Well, and I think it's fair to say, right, all these episodes were loved more than others, and by some people, and then vice versa. But I think they were all enjoyed, and these just happen to be the couple that. Really
and they
resonated.
all, the comments, they all have some great comments. So all of our guests did a great job.
Yeah, good. Well, and that's the next subject, right?
Yeah.
Is favorite guest. So again, we'll go from the bottom. Number 3 was Jungle Jones from episode 9 on F-14D. And, by the way, I don't know Jungle. I know of him, and I think he said the same of me. But Jungle, I'd get in your T-45 and I'll meet you in my F-18, buddy, because I don't know. It sounded like a little bluster. I met a T-45 at a grad 1v1 with Chili Culpepper in my backseat because he had just come in from his grad 1v1, and they put me in a B. And I said, come on, Chili, let's go. He said, all right. And we had no trouble. But, anyway. You guys aren't touching that one, are you?
It's not the box matters a little as the man in the box.
I was not that good. Come on, Crunch. You and I were at 1v1 in Key West together. Remember? No. Sprout told me, I remember this. Russ Emmons, he denies it to this day, but I remember him telling me, Jell-O, you're just not quite there yet, but we'll work on you when you get on the staff. I remember that vividly.
Oh, man.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ow.
Well, because let's face it, everybody else was moving beyond defensive or whatever we started with, and I just wasn't getting it. But at any rate, all right. So Jungle Jones was third, and then number 2 was Tung Peterson from Operation Enduring Freedom, episode 23. Yep. Any guesses? Do you guys want to take a stab at this, or do you rather not? Probably.
Yeah, Z-Man.
The
Z-Man, Orty.
Nope. Slammer Richardson, episode 4, flying the F-14.
Well, that makes sense too.
Yep. Okay. All right. Now I get to pick on you guys. Bio, I'm going to start with you. Hold up what you're holding there in your hand, because having a beer ready to go and referring to refills as hitting the tanker was one of the viewers' favorite bio-isms.
Love it. It's very, it's funny because it's true.
I do that
That's
to
awesome.
one. It's my courage. No, but
chemical intervention, really?
Another Tomcat pilot said, "Never go on alone." So that's my wingman.
Well,
but no, that one reason I do it is to establish, a casual atmosphere. So I'm glad people enjoy that. All right, I won't interrupt every comment. I can't wait to hear some of these others.
Yeah, it's funny because as episodes went on, your guys' little intro stingers were always kind of funny. Like, wait, I can drink? Your guest would say or something. So, yeah, it's good. It's good.
Oh, that's Scott right. Pulling things out and putting them up there,
Oh, yeah. That's good. Thank you, Scott, our producer. All right. Another favorite bio-ism, and these are just all over the map, right? But your encyclopedic knowledge, you were very detailed and you had notes. And I attribute that, Bio, to the fact that you're an accomplished author, but maybe it's just you are just that good.
I think it might just be that he's that good, he's that smart, that detailed, knows all that stuff. And oh, by the way, when somebody says, "Hey, what oil pressure does the oil pressure light come on in the F-14A?" and he's going to reach behind him and go, "Yeah, it's 65
My book
psi.
right
Here it is, right here."
All right. And the last one before we pick on Crunch was just your general enthusiasm. And I can hear, when I read this, I can hear you saying it. What a story, right? And this is great. Keep going. So apparently people appreciated that bio.
Thanks for being gentle on me, audience.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Crunch, you're up next. And you've been demonstrating this already.
I'm
You are.
in the
And the first
spotlight.
one was your enthusiastic demeanor, your laughter, humor, reminiscing smile, and other fun facial expressions.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Perfect.
Well, that makes me smile. Thank you,
so
audience.
Bio for you is number one. Crunch for you is only number two. But you guys did justice to the mid '80s F-14 vibe in the heyday of the Miramar O Club, because for you number two was beer in hand during show. So we have celebrated beer apparently. And then awesome. Which I, by the way, am really glad to hear that you also say that, because I feel a little Bill and Ted kind of era when I say awesome and dude and all that on my show. So I'm glad they pinged you for that as well.
And who is it that uses that's me that does that, or is that Bio? Okay, all right. Oh, I thought maybe we had switched because I'm like, I think he says it too. I may have a little bit of an enthusiasm problem. No. I understand that. I'm working on it. But I'm failing.
The two favorite quotes, I'm going to put you guys on the spot. This is going to be really hard to figure out because I'm not going to tell you whose quote it is. The two favorite quotes were, "I just flew the thing I can't remember," and "Back in my day, we just did air to air."
Oh, that's easy.
Exactly.
Oh, well, yeah.
So, Crunch, by the way, I almost got you on it, but you said something earlier on this interview about, I don't know, I was just flying or something like that. So, yeah. Something along those lines.
Did I say that?
Oh boy.
Yeah. Is it? Am I wrong though? Was I wrong? I don't think I'm wrong.
But let me put it.
I just flew the thing. Yeah. Which way do I go?
Let me put it to you guys, right? Because when you go to the Blue Angels at an air show, you see the 6 pilots, but there's so many other people that make the show happen. So we see and hear you two, but right, it's not just you two. We already talked about one of them. Who else is out there?
Well, first up, there's Scott Higbee, right? So he's in the back. He's producing the show. He's doing our editing for us. He's really making all that stuff happen. And
Indeed.
Hats off to you, Scott. You did a great job. And then, so we also got Jamie Lopez did the music for us, right? Way back in the beginning, which we had, it's the 1980s Top Gun theme. It was kind of like that Kenny Loggins inspired sound, which I don't know about anybody else, but when I turn this thing on and it starts rolling into that,
it's perfect.
It's era.
It gives a goosebump.
It's era appropriate. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. And it just rolls right into it. And we do the Air Boss intro and it's just like, that's so awesome.
We had Mike Valancourt, who did our logo, which I like our logo because like the music, it's, reminiscent of something, but not an exact copy. And Mike has also handled our merchandise store. So,
Yep. You guys are wearing your polos. That's very cool.
That's right. Got the polos. I've got my Tomcast coffee cup, which is back at home. I'm in my office, and I never did get a hat.
You didn't get a Tomcast?
I got a hat. I need to order a hat.
Get one of those.
I need to go. I know. I think I meant to order it, and I probably timed out my card or something. So, good job, Mike.
Mike is on the BVR Productions team. He helps us out, as is Ben Todd, who I think helped you guys a little bit here and there. And then who did you get? So that's again, you guys went with video, which I recommended against. I will say I was wrong. You guys did it. Nicely done. But you have some good B-roll F-14 footage there. Where'd you guys get that?
Oh, yeah, that was a great idea. When we were talking about producing this show, I looked through my own sparse personal video collection, and it's like wanting. It's not worth it. And so then I think Jell-O, I think didn't you mention Paco or was that Crunch? Anyway, somebody mentioned Paco Kariki, and who is the an A6 pilot, a Tomcat pilot, and then an F5 adversary pilot. And he's an airline pilot now, and also flies an acrobatic airplane.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep,
he
you
was
guys
the
had him on?
producer. He was a producer of Speed and Angels.
That's right.
And he had a lot of excess video. He let us use what we wanted for our intro and closing. And so, Paco, thanks. And he was also a guest on episode episode 20.
Awesome.
So
All
thanks,
right.
Paco.
Thanks, Paco.
Yeah. That's right. Thank you. Thanks, Paco. And thanks to Scott for all your editing. I tell you what, he does a lot of work in this, and he has to work through all those crunchisms and bioisms and mold them together so that they actually make sense. I mean, shoot, what do? I don't know what I'm doing. I just fly the thing. I just talk into the radio here, and then everybody else does the work. I mean,
it's all good.
I don't do
it's
anything.
all good. I think we could also thank the FPP announcer, Clint Bell, who I said, hey, we got this other show. You willing to do it? And he did it for free. He hasn't charged me yet. And so that's been great. So thank you, Clint. I think we should thank all the guests that you guys had on. I mean, you guys did during those episodes, but we certainly should. We should thank the viewers and the listeners who, without them, there'd be no reason to have this. And again, the many donors who stepped up and helped to pay Scott and some of the that really made this happen.
That's right. I think it does. Jell-O, you hit the nail on the head. We owe a special thanks to all of our viewers, all of our listeners, everybody who engages with the show and says, hey, I love this. I have a question, and gives it value. Because I tell you, if we had nothing, no feedback or anything for the last year, this would be really, really hard, right? To just keep putting this content out there for no reason. We have all these people out there listening and talking about how exciting it is, whether it's bringing them back to the old days or they're just an enthusiast and they're like, hey, I want to know something about this airplane that I've heard so much about or seen at an air show. And we owe a big special thanks to all of our loyal listeners and viewers on YouTube and everything, because couldn't do it without you. That's the truth.
All right, you guys, we're almost done then. Now that this Odyssey is over, what's the future for you? This is a question I like to ask on the Fighter Pilot podcast. So, Bio, you're going to keep rocking your rocking chair, I'm guessing, but anything, you got any more books in you, or what's the future, bud?
I don't think I have any more books, although, I don't think I have any more books, but I am working on a few little online web articles for other websites, and also my Tomcat Memories videos, my personal video series. And I think that when we pull the plug on this episode, I'm going to sit there and go, you know what? We need to talk about a couple of other things. So Crunch and I have talked about this. I'm looking at Crunch on my screen here. So maybe we'll have an encore or something like that.
Like a concert where you just don't want it to end.
Yeah. As we've said, I owe you guys. We've talked about it, the call sign story or my first CQ story, and those are I will definitely need a beer to tell those properly, because they're not just. It's not just it's a full body experience to tell this story properly. So I need to warm up a little bit, stretch,
that's
hydrate.
A little disturbing.
Time for it's story time with Grandpa. Yeah, that's right.
Well, apart from that, Crunch, I mean, you don't do anything except for real estate and real estate investing, flying for the airlines, family man, 100 other things. But what's the future for you?
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping my boat gets out of the shop, which nice. They don't even know what's wrong with it. So that's one thing, I'm working on. No, but you hit it right there. So but I'm busy as heck so my wife and I got the retail real estate team where we the two of us are a team. We buy and sell houses for clients. That was never our intention. And next thing you know, we love it, and we found out we're pretty good at it. And so we're out there. We're doing some business, and it's solid, and we're pleased with it. We're buying and selling real estate as investments for our personal book. Matter of fact, just this morning, I was taking my son. He turns 17 next week, and he's going out to buy his second rental property. Don't tell anybody, but I don't think this one's going to make it. The inspection was this morning; it wasn't good. Right. Not good. But in any case, that's part of investing is you weed out the chaff, so to speak, and you get the good stuff. But yeah, doing that. I'm also still flying for American. I'm not even sure which one's the side hustle anymore, because I tell people that. It used to be like, hey, I'm an American pilot for airline pilot, side hustle of real estate. Now I'm like, I'm a real estate guy. I was calling myself the real estate wingman. I think I'm going to switch that to the real estate gentleman. I am now the real estate gentleman. What do you think? Does that have a ring? It's not very good.
It's not as distinctive.
No.
It's not as distinctive as
it's not
wingman.
very good.
Hey, but you can.
Yeah. Well, I came up with that just now. I was like, I'm trying it out. It didn't work. It flopped. It's like a Led Zeppelin. But so I do that so much now that I tell people, I'm like, yeah, my side hustle is fly as an airline pilot.
That's not a bad way to go, because you go do that, and when you're done, right? They're not calling you like, hey, help with this report.
That's right.
All right, you guys.
That's right. There's no TPS reports.
I tell you what, as I said before, you guys want to give me credit. I appreciate that. You did mention me on many interviews, episodes. I appreciate that too. But really, you guys own this. You made it work. You made it succeed. So if I may, on behalf of the viewers and the listeners, thank you both for your dedication to celebrating the big fighter. I mean, it really is. I wanted to fly it at one point, and I would have loved to do it and be able to say I did it, but it just wasn't in the cards. And everybody loves the F-14. Everybody loves stories and a good time. And you guys combined those three in this last year of the F-14 Tomcast. And so to include me on the bookend episodes has been my honor. Thanks very much. But I will say this, I think an honor is to have the last word in something, and that does not belong to me. That belongs to you two gentlemen for the F-14 Tomcast. So I'm out, and you guys take us out.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to let you have the last word.
You got something? Okay, I'll just say, right. Now this is not a mutual adoration society, but I will say, Jell-O, I still remember when you called me and asked me if I was interested in this, and I talked to Crunch like either 15 minutes before or after, but I remember it, and it's been a lot more fun than expected. It's an honor to be part of this. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for all your mentoring at the start, Jell-O. Also, Crunch, you've been great to work with, buddy. You are you've made this a lot more fun, and my last word would be fly Navy.
Oh, I love it. Well, gentlemen, I have to say I was going to say much of the same stuff, because I tell you, first off, Jell-O, we could not have done this without you and your team. Could we have done it? Sure. It would have been a lot more difficult, a lot more bumpy. You, as you said, you raised the toddler for us, and you really kept our feet to the fire and made sure that we were on track and publishing on time. And that has incredible value to our audience. And we thank you for that. Bio, I remember that our first phone call, I called you up and you were skeptical. You're like, here's another person inviting me to be a guest on his podcast. I'm like, no, I want you to do this with me. And you were like, oh, what a group. Maybe. You had to think about it, right? And I'm so glad you did, because I tell you, it would not be the same without you. And I thank you, because I seriously feel like you do about 75 to 80% of the work around here. I feel like I just show up. I just fly the thing, right? But that's what I feel like. And I appreciate everything you've done, because it's, as everybody says, it really feels like you're the one who knows really what's going on here. I appreciate that. Team. It is a crew concept. We have two of us. We have a little crew concept here. Well, and to both of you gentlemen, I thank you very much. To the entire team, thank you. And most of all, to our listeners, thank you to all of you for being loyal listeners to the F-14 Tomcast. Recovery complete. Nice job, Deck. Let's make some room on the waist. Recover the helos to spots 4 and 5. Stuff the Tomcats.